Today we are going to look at a general overview of addiction treatment and recovery services, including those provided in an agency setting, early intervention educational services, alternative community programs, and peer-based services. When determining agency treatment services within the state of Wisconsin, the concept of levels of care are used. This refers to the type, amount, and intensity of service that is deemed best for a client. For example, would it be more effective for a client to receive outpatient services or inpatient services, and how is this determined? The levels of care in Wisconsin are largely based on the American Society of Addiction Medicine's, known as ASAM, structure of services. So how is this determination made? Well, in general, three areas of criteria are addressed. First, the assessment of factors such as a person's current level of use and medical stability, the range of presenting issues, the type and amount of recovery support needs, and relapse potential are assessed. Second, which level of care would be the most appropriate and least restrictive to meet the client's needs. This is especially important as a higher or more restrictive level of care than needed is to be avoided. And third, what types of services are available within the person's living area. For example, if a client may benefit most from inpatient services but the community only offers outpatient services, that may be the only form of treatment available. In addition to formal treatment services, we will be returning to community services that help sustain recovery, such as alternative community programs and peer-based supports. Looking more closely at addiction and early intervention, these are often in the form of educational courses. Often the goal is to offer information that helps the client do a self-assessment, create healthy alternatives to use, and prevent further development of addiction issues. Often clients referred to these programs are considered at risk or viewed as irresponsible in their use. This type of service is generally offered in a class-type setting. Some examples of these classes are called Group Dynamics and Multiple Offender Program, which are for driving under the influence or operating while intoxicated offenses, and the Basics Program, which targets college students showing risky behavior with substances. With types of services and levels of care, we will start first with detoxification or withdrawal management services. This refers to services that are needed to stabilize a client who is under the influence, experiencing withdrawal, or at risk of developing lethal withdrawal symptoms. Detox and withdrawal management services generally have three goals: treat current symptoms, prevent harmful and potentially fatal withdrawal symptoms such as seizures, delirium, or death, and present the prospect of treatment and recovery services. Often withdrawal services are divided between ambulatory, meaning outpatient, and non-ambulatory, where the person stays for a short period of time in a facility to oversee their detoxification and withdrawal process. Non-ambulatory is considered a higher level of care due to the need for more intense supervision. What determines ambulatory versus non-ambulatory is, most often, the severity of the withdrawal symptoms and the decision that a person needs to remain in a facility for supervision of withdrawal symptoms. If the symptoms are very severe or putting a person at risk, then non-ambulatory is needed. Another differentiation within withdrawal management services is medically monitored versus medically managed services. Both involve medical staff in the form of nursing and other medical staff. However, there are significant differences. Medically monitored means that the withdrawal services are under the supervision of a physician. This can mean that a doctor is on call and has some contact with the agency and clients, but does not need to be on site all the time. Medically managed is a higher level of medical care than medically monitored. While nursing staff is still present within a medically managed facility, this also requires complete medical and nursing staff levels, as well as on-site and ongoing oversight from a doctor, not just supervision. In addition, a medically managed facility needs the availability of all the resources found in a primary medical care and hospital facility, including life support equipment. So the need requirement for a medically managed care will generally result in a facility that is a general or specialty hospital. This medically managed versus medically monitored distinction is applicable both to withdrawal management services and levels of care and treatment services that we will discuss next. So, looking at the levels of care that fall under treatment services, we will start at the highest or most restrictive form of care in this area: inpatient services. This qualifies as a higher restrictive level of care, as this is a location where clients do reside for a period of time, even if it is only short term. In addition, to be labeled as an inpatient facility requires two requirements. One, to offer treatment services beyond what is offered in withdrawal management services, and two, to be a medically managed facility. Inpatient services falls under the medically managed requirement discussed before, meaning that it is a general or hospital setting. Clients will engage in a range of treatment and recovery services that I will list coming up, but to qualify as an inpatient facility, these services are required to be provided under the care of an outside doctor and in a general or specialty hospital setting. Next is residential services. Here a client will again be in a higher restrictive level of care, as they will actually be residing in the treatment facility. However, the distinction between inpatient and residential care is that residential services only need to fulfill the medically monitored, not medically managed requirements. In terms of the recovery services offered, within a residential facility, a minimum of 12 hours of recovery-based services need to be provided each week. This can generally be a combination of services such as individual counseling, various types of group and supportive therapies, family sessions, life skills training, and case management services. The critical requirement is that the state requires a residential facility to offer a minimum of 12 hours of services per week. Moving to a lesser restrictive level of care is what is referred to as day treatment or intensive outpatient services. At this level of care, a person does not live at the agency but comes frequently throughout the week to attend the agency's treatment services. Often these are programs that are arranged as a 4-day-a-week program offering 4 hours of services each of the 4 days, where all clients participate in the same treatment format. So, for example, a program may be formatted so that clients come Monday through Thursday for 4 hours each day. In an effort to accommodate various life needs such as different work schedules, transportation, and childcare needs, many agencies try to offer different treatment schedules such as a day track, where services are provided from 9 to 1 p.m., or an evening track program where services are offered from 5 to 9 p.m. This helps ensure that clients who have life obligations during the day or night hours can still fully participate in one of the program tracks. Now, in terms of actual recovery services provided in a day treatment facility, here again the state requires a minimum of 12 hours of services per week. This can be in the form of a combination of services such as individual sessions, group, and family services and case management. The least restrictive level of care is next, which is outpatient services. A client does not reside at the agency but comes as needed for recovery services such as individual and/or group appointments. Outpatient is often viewed as a very flexible level of care, as there is a wide variety in how services are offered and individualized to meet each person's recovery support needs. Here, a maximum, not a minimum, a maximum of 12 hours of treatment services can be provided each week and is based on each client's specific needs. So, for example, one person might need only 1 hour of service every other week in the form of an individual session, while another person might need to attend 2 to 3 agency support groups each week. While very different in schedule and recovery needs, both of these people are considered appropriate for outpatient services, as they both fall under the requirement for less than 12 hours of treatment services. With levels of care, programs commonly referred to as transitional residential programs can also be offered. Many people have heard of halfway houses or similar facilities which offer housing in a supportive recovery-based living environment. To be a transitional residential program, again speaking of state licensed facilities, the house needs to be granted a license by the state and be clinically supervised. In addition, transitional residential facilities are commonly peer supported, meaning that some of the services are offered by those who have completed the program. The goals here are to help a person transition back into their life by offering recovery-based housing, providing relapse prevention and support in maintaining recovery, and to increase the person's chances to be successful in their long-term recovery goals. When looking at levels of care, it is important to note that a client can start at one level of care and then transition to another. For example, someone might enter residential services, which is a higher level of care, successfully complete that program, and then transition down to a lower level of care such as outpatient services to maintain their recovery. Sometimes this is referred to as the aftercare approach, as the person has been successful in completing the original program, but would still benefit from some professional services to help with relapse prevention needs and sustaining recovery just at a lower level of care. A transition can also be in reverse, where a person starts at a lower level of care but then transitions to a higher level of care. This generally occurs when it becomes apparent that more services in a program offering a higher level of care are needed to help the client achieve their recovery goals. Moving to other forms of community services within agencies, it can be helpful to know that many alternative service programs in agencies can also help a person's recovery. These are services that may not be addiction specific, but may be very knowledgeable about ways addiction can impact multiple areas of a person's life. Thus, these programs can go a long way in sustaining a person's recovery and increasing quality of life. For example, programs labeled as crisis stabilization, community support programs, or clubhouses, while not addiction specific, can provide valuable services. Agencies providing these types of programs often offer services such as social outings, employment training and placement, respite care, and in-home visits, which can be vital in sustaining recovery. Often these alternative programs collaborate with formal or peer-based recovery programs to enrich a person's life. Lastly, we have a range of peer-based and peer-run community offerings that can be instrumental in sustaining a person's recovery. While outside of the formal treatment system, these play an equally valuable role in addiction and recovery services and continue to expand in the community. This is especially true during periods when funding for addiction treatment becomes limited. One example of a peer-based recovery support are sober living houses. These houses offer a chance to live in a recovery-safe environment. While often similar in the structure and goals of a transitional residential facility, the key difference is that sober living houses are not licensed by the state. Another example of community offerings are peer-run support groups. These often offer ways to increase recovery support, motivation for recovery, and ways to build, live, and sustain a healthy recovery lifestyle. So, as you can see, there are quite a range of services that fit under the treatment umbrella, all in an effort to help match the most appropriate type of care for each person and offer the best chance of recovery success for everyone.